Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This week we enter Parshat Nasso, which happens to be the largest Parsha in the whole Torah, which is 176 verses. And we are going to learn about in chapter 6 about a topic called the Nazir. The Nazir is someone that separates himself for a designated period of time. And in order to qualify as a Nazir, you have to have three characteristics. A Nazirite is forbidden to eat or drink any grape products, which is i.e. wine derivatives. He is not allowed to cut his hair during this long time period, and also he shouldn't contaminate himself with a corpse or anything like that. This, back in the day, was seen as a very, very difficult feat to do, as people drank wine a lot, people did have haircuts, and it was something that would improve the vanity. But one could pose a question that if we are not, why deprive ourselves of all these things? Hashem gave us all these gifts and all these different things we could drink, to enjoy, to have a haircut, all these things. Why deprive ourselves? So there's 4 different examples you can see from the Torah, with Nevi'im or Ketuvim. The first example we see is actually, since this week we're talking about Queen Elizabeth a lot in England, how much of a commemorative event it's going to be. There was actually a woman of the name Queen Helena who lived just about 50 years before the second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. So it happened to be that Queen Helena's son, his name was Isaac, he happened to go to war, and it was at a big risk of potentially dying, in this war. So she actually put a vow on herself that if he was going to come out alive and healthy, she will actually become a Nazirite for 7 years, and she actually fulfilled that at the end. It talks about how she went to Judea. We will also see inside the book of we learn about Shimon in the Sefer of the Nevi'im, that his mother actually, at the time when he was born, actually desecrated that he is going to become a Nazir at his birth, and he ended up becoming Nazir, not cutting his hair, and this gave him a lot of spiritual strength to wage war against the Philistines and actually defeat on many occasions. We also see Shmuel, the prophet Samuel, in the book of Samuel, that his mother Hannah was davening so hard to Hashem, to God, to have children for many years, and she promised Hashem that if she would get pregnant, her son will become a Nazir, and that's what happened to be. It happened to be that Shmuel became a Nazir and became the main prophet of the land of Israel, and actually anointed King Saul and also King David at a later stage. And we also see another example. There was a very great rabbi of the name Shimon Haatzadik, and he was actually against this whole idea of people becoming a Nazirite. But however, on one specific occasion, there was the Gemara in Nazir, Tractate Nazir, in page 4, tells us that there was a shepherd, and he was walking around the street, and he saw a big river, and he looked at his reflection inside the river, and he saw how handsome he was, how amazing he was, and automatically bad thoughts came into his head of with different women, and he became very arrogant, and then straight away he put on himself that he is going to become a Nazir to remove himself from those bad thoughts, from this Yetzer Hara. So he spent 7 years obviously depriving himself of all those things. And Shimon Hatzan, who was against the idea of the Nazirite, of putting these things on himself, he actually partook in his Seudah and actually saw the benefits of it, because he wanted to work on himself and separate himself from this characteristic. So as I said before, why deprive ourselves of this? It's actually the Rambam himself actually says that if someone is the extreme in a specific thing, in order to go into the middle path, which he strongly recommends, you've got to go to the opposite extreme. So let's give an example. Say someone happens to be very tight, very stingy when it comes to giving charity, doesn't want to give at all. So he recommends to go to the opposite extreme and give in abundance a lot of money for a specific period of time, and then later on that stinginess is going to be curbed out, and he's going to be able to take the middle path at a later stage. We see all these examples of the Nazirites. This gave them by separating a spiritual energy in order to improve and work on themselves and become the top in their respective fields. We see Shmuel became the greatest prophet. So Shimshon became one of the greatest warriors of the land of Israel. Queen Helena became one of the best queens, and she was also a Gioret, also a convert. We also see that as shepherds, he really worked on themselves. And we see that the word Nazir can also, if you change the Nukudot, the vowels, it can also be called the word Nazir. What does the word Nazir mean? It means a crown in English. And someone that works on themselves to such a great degree, in such great strength, you'll actually get the crown at the end to be able to work on it. when we take something that we're struggling with and we really work on ourselves in this specific item, let's just say, then there'll be mass abundance spiritually and also physically in life. So let's take this thing we might be weak on in our characteristics, and let's work on ourselves, give ourselves a target of like 2-3 months or whatever it might be, and work on ourselves, and we will see such great abundance. And it's no coincidence that this is the longest Parsha in the Torah, which actually is 176 verses, which also is the same amount of pages in the tractate Baba Batra, which happens to be the largest Gemara. So may we take this idea of a Nazir, the ideal concept of separation for a specific time, and work on ourselves, and we will be able to come into the Chag of Shavuot in the most abundant level. I'm wishing you all a fantastic Shabbat, and stay tuned. I'm going to give a lecture on a small class on Chag HaShavuot also. This class is dedicated in memory of Ahuva Bat Chaya Hiria. Shabbat Shalom.